What up? 大家好，我是锁头。Again, thank you guys so much for your donations and for liking and sharing our videos. And a huge shout out to all 800 of you who bought our English course. I know many of you guys come to our channel to learn English, but if you want to go deeper and learn how to sound authentic and remove the awkwardness around speaking English, then click the link down below.
Just do it!
So, our 奇怪 Doctor series had many of you split down the middle on whether or not the doctor was insane or just very logical but misunderstood. And some of you even implied that it was unfair to pit a lawyer against a doctor. Well, luckily, last night, Johnny Depp called a series of rebuttal witnesses, and one of them was able to set the record straight on Spiegel's testimony and regarding the Goldwater rule. But most importantly, this guy will reveal something that may expose Dr. Spiegel as a liar.
Drama, my favorite.
So today, it'll be 超怪 Doctor versus 奇怪 Doctor. And by the end, you can decide who's the mad one and who's the sane one. So previously, Dr. Spiegel testified regarding Johnny Depp's mental decline and what he thought was the cause.
So during the video deposition, what was readily apparent was a gentleman who had a significant delay in processing speed. And like I said, when you have a delay in processing speed, many other cognitive functions are going to follow. You're going to be impaired attention, concentration, memory, all that's going to happen. In terms of having to, the speech process, if you heard the deposition, the way the thoughts were conveyed were much more in the way of kind of disconnected, disjointed statements. It wasn't that they were not necessarily understandable, but they didn't have any coherent pattern. You could see there that there was obviously some form of cognitive issue that should not be happening in someone in their mid-50s. I think probably due to the alcohol and substances. And as part of that mini mental state examination, you're asked to remember 3 words and then come back 5 minutes later and repeat those 3 words. Mr. Depp was unable to recall any of them, and that is very unusual for a 50-ish year old male. I don't remember how old he was when he took that. That age group should be remembering 2 or all 3 of those words.
Dr. Spiegel, these opinions that you have offered here, do you hold them to within a reasonable degree of medical and psychiatric probability or certainty?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Now that last part is very important. A reasonable degree of certainty is what doctors and scientists use to determine the accuracy of their research and their opinion. So in plain English, it's how they determine how right or wrong they are. And Dr. Spiegel didn't just say yes, he said
absolutely.
So let's hear what Dr. Shaw has to say about this. And take note, he has written 3 books all published by the APA, the same organization that created the Goldwater rule.
So it is possible for someone to give testimony about a matter without interviewing someone. And there's certain sort of ways that it should be framed. So for example, when Dr. Spiegel was testifying about the report that Mr. Depp was unable to recall these 3 objects, what he could have done is said that I have not personally examined Mr. Depp, so I can't speculate about his cognitive state or ability to function cognitively. However, it is possible that someone who's not able to recall 3 objects could have issues related to substance use, which was what his opinion was. However, what he should have done in expressing his opinion is then have followed up to say that in order to really establish whether these were relevant and significant cognitive deficits, Mr. Depp should have had psychological testing to establish the nature of these deficits.
Who's qualified to give an opinion about cognitive deficits and processing speed?
It would have to be someone who could conduct the type of neuropsychological testing that I was mentioning. You can't establish cognitive deficits without appropriate neuropsychological testing, and that can only be done by a psychologist or neuropsychologist. So a psychiatrist like Dr. Spiegel would be giving an opinion outside of his area of expertise if he gave an opinion about cognitive deficits that required psychological testing to be further evaluated.
Wow, so it turns out Dr. Spiegel wasn't even qualified to give his opinion because it's not his area of expertise. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, but he is a psychiatrist and he did try to examine Johnny Depp twice, but Johnny Depp refused. Word? 你确定吗？
Did you interview Mr. Depp?
No, I did not.
Did you
But-
request to
I
interview?
requested to interview Mr. Depp twice, and both times Mr. Depp and his lawyers refused.
You understand that the court was twice asked by Ms. Heard's counsel to order a medical exam of Mr. Depp, and those motions were denied.
I think your team told the court you didn't want to have them, and the court ruled on them, right? I don't think the court proactively did it. You kind of had a motion to them, right?
No, when Ms. Heard's lawyers moved for them and asked for them and did not get them. Isn't that right, sir?
If you're saying that's what happened, my understanding of was that you all did not want him to undergo one. They petitioned for it. The court said no. Yes, that's what my understanding of it was.
The court said no to ordering Mr. Depp to do the medical exam.
Right, that's what I said. The court did not require it, right?
Well, there you go. It wasn't Johnny who refused, it was the court itself that denied the request. So Dr. Spiegel did make an analysis of Johnny Depp, but what exactly did he use to do so?
But court filings, psychological testing that was done on Ms. Heard by both Dr. Hughes and Dr. Curry, other physicians' medical records, other physician note, Dr. Kipper, counselors and therapists that both parties and psychiatrists that they went to, text messages, depositions, snippets of the UK trial, and I'm sure pictures of physical injuries, so I've seen a lot.
All right, so we had a lot of secondhand information, similar to Don Hughes' situation. But like he argued before, Andy had a good point, that even though the Goldwater standard frowns upon doctors making a diagnosis on someone who they haven't examined in person, that many doctors do it anyway. And that if they didn't, forensic psychology would cease to exist. But there are a few tiny details that Dr. Spiegel missed, and Dr. Shaw is going to lay them out for you.
Dr. Spiegel yesterday testified about the practice of forensic psychiatry. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
Are there professional standards that govern the practice of forensic psychiatry?
Yes, there are.
And what organizations have issued those standards?
One of the primary organizations that has issued guidelines about the practice of forensic psychiatry is called the American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law. This is an organization that represents forensic psychiatrists. It has published guidelines about what constitutes an ethical and sound practice of doing a forensic assessment and providing a psychiatric opinion. So this guideline, I think was published in 2015, actually contains many elements that are consistent with the Goldwater rule. The guidelines do state that it is reasonable or permitted to provide an opinion without an evaluation, but if you're going to do that, there's some things that you have to really make clear in your opinion when you express that opinion. And the first is that you have to acknowledge the limitations of your opinion and not, like Dr. Spiegel, say that his opinion was held with a degree of medical certainty. You have to explain what's missing, what data you did not have that you were not able to rely upon in coming to that opinion. You also have to talk about what additional information you would need to come to that opinion. And even though these guidelines say it's permissible to do this, the text is still not fully in support of psychiatrists doing this. So their statements are that opinions rendered without a proper database, which is what we as psychiatrists rely upon to make diagnoses and give opinions, professional opinions, is questionable and not generally recommended.
Did you form an opinion about Dr. Spiegel's testimony with respect to these practice guidelines?
Yes, I did.
And what is your opinion?
Well, my opinion is that he did not follow those guidelines. So, for example, he did not have consent. He did not do even a basic evaluation of Mr. Depp. When he gave his opinions, as I just mentioned, he said they were opinions that he had to a degree of medical certainty, and he did not make any statements about what other additional information he would have wanted to make that opinion. So, for example, when asked about should neuropsychological testing be performed, he said most patients don't have access to that, which is actually not at all true. I mean, every medical school has neuropsychologists that can do testing. So I think that was an unfortunate statement. So I think those are the primary ways in which the Goldwater rule was violated, and the practice guidelines were not adhered to.
Damn. So to me, Dr. Shaw laid it out pretty clear where Dr. Spiegel went wrong in his diagnostic process.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Now in this next clip, Amber Heard's lawyers did try to come back and nail Dr. Shaw and Cross, but it didn't work out the way they wanted. And I want you to pay close attention to how Dr. Shaw responds to the questions versus how Dr. Spiegel responded in his previous testimony.
You're not offering any opinion as to Mr. Depp's psychology, correct?
That's correct.
You know of no case where an expert has been excluded from testifying based on the Goldwater rule, correct?
I don't know about the whole universe of cases. It's possible, but I don't know personally about one.
And before this case, you've never offered an opinion on the Goldwater rule before, correct?
That's correct.
And you've never written an article on the Goldwater rule, correct?
I have not.
And you've never given a presentation on the Goldwater rule, correct?
I have not.
And you've never been on any committees regarding the Goldwater rule, correct?
I have not.
And you agree that you've testified that there are exceptions to the Goldwater rule about having to interview the subject, right?
Yes.
And you understand that Dr. Spiegel requested to meet with Mr. Depp twice, but Mr. Depp declined, correct?
I'm aware of that.
And Dr. Spiegel stated in his designation and at trial yesterday that he did not meet with Mr. Depp, right?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Shaw, have you seen the opinions of the Ethics Committee on the Principles of Medical Ethics?
Yes.
You see where it's highlighted here?
Yes.
And it says psychiatrists have also argued that the Goldwater rule is not sound because psychiatrists are sometimes asked to render
Objection,
opinions.
hearsay.
He's an expert. Without conducting an examination of an individual, examples occur in particular in certain forensic cases and consultative roles. This objection attempts to subsume the rule with its exceptions. What this objection misses, however, is that the rendering of expertise and/or an opinion in these contexts is permissible because there is a court authorization for the examination or an opinion without examination, and this work is conducted within an evaluative framework, including parameters for how and where the information may be used or disseminated. You see that?
I do, yes.
And this court authorized Dr. Spiegel to testify in this case, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
So to me, this guy, 真的是超乖 doctor. He speaks clearly when making his points. He's not combative when being asked questions by Heard's team. And most importantly, he's humble as fuck. So I think if 奇怪 Doctor had been a little bit more like this guy, his testimony might have gone a lot better and his Google ratings wouldn't have taken the hit that they did. Now, this was just one of the rebuttal witnesses that Johnny Depp called. And in the next episode, you're gonna hear one witness drop a bomb and blow a hole into Amber Heard's testimony, which makes it clear that Amber Heard is lying her ass off. So, stick around for that, and I'll see you on the flip side. Peace!